Who should you pull for Drumbarka? Ideally, you would have been asking yourself that starting Fest 5.0. But like how in investing the best time was yesterday, the second best time is today. So without going too much into the nuance of what the skills actually do, I'm going to map the banners from Fest 5.0 till now against Drumbarka functions. I'll also offer some sample teams that might help you decide who to roll leading up to the boss. For Japan as the beta testers, we were kind of in the dark about what was coming. So every banner, it was something like, oh cool, cleansing and red armor. Wonder what they'll be used for. Since you've got the future sight of global though, your pyros will thank you for using it. Gotta save that blue rock for the waifus. Note, this is mostly for the Torment to Extreme bracket of players. I'm not going to wait into Lunatic, since I didn't even attempt it seeing the monstrous requirements. And the pull recommendation for that basically becomes everything related to the raid anyways. We'll start by going over the skills lightly first. Phase 1. You have many hit bubbles you have to tank. There are also the parts you have to break. That's the red hole that wants non-EX damage and needs to be focus fired to reach, as well as the two claws on the left and right that can only be hit by blue EX damage. Finally, there's the cleanse you use to dodge the claw lunges. Phase 2 has the drum barrel cleansing for survival and buffs. There's also the blue non-EX damage for charging the crane. And there's the red EX damage for attacking the claw and counter claw. So, who from the banners starting Fest 5.0 filled each of these roles? Let's start from the limited banners of Fest 5.0. Armed Rhea, when used, showed up mostly in Phase 2 as the red EX damage dealer for the claw. In Torment, she just wasn't specifically good for Drumbarka because of only neutral armor and also the lack of any defense ignore for her damage. She's got enough firepower for a plat-worthy insane speed if you really want to use her though. Her bannermate Armed Himari wasn't used much considering she's used for, well, yellow. If you have a throw team that could use cost regen though, no harm in slotting her in. Next up is Armed Aris. This raid really raised her stock. She's the far and away best clawbreaker for Phase 1. Like head and shoulders above everyone else. She's also your main damage source in Phase 1, so any amount of investment that you can give her helps you reach Phase 2 faster. It'll also reduce the chance that the first claw doesn't break. She's only the queen of Phase 1 since blue EX damage is politely but firmly asked to leave in Phase 2, like a guest who asks for a well done steak. You might just get bricked at insane if you don't have Armed Aris. Nobody managed to get a platinum score without using her. As for the white Roomba, Kay's flexible. She more often ended up in a Phase 2 team, because using her in Phase 1 required the expensive and not so pulled Pajama Koyuki to open up a striker slot. In Phase 1 she'll buff Aris, and your red buffer will also get the attack buff. In Phase 2 she'll buff any combination of Kuroko, Izuna, Swimsuit Izuna, and Armed Hoshino. And then the Decagrammaton banners continued on past Fest. It was Armed Yuzu. She wasn't widely used, but after looking at the post-raid data, I owe UZ Queen an apology for underestimating her. Beyond her use in Swimsuit Mika cleanup teams for Phase 1, she also sneakily occupied a few plat spots as a buffer on a Phase 1 main team. Then there was Armed Amy. She didn't end up mandatory for Platinum, but she sure helped with one part of the consistency. She was the best hole-breaking unit of Phase 1, with her self-focus fire and beefy autos and normal skill. So if you're looking to go fast, you'll probably end up using her. And in my own limited trials, she pretty consistently outdid Otogi in the comfy department, the free sort of not so free alternative. Okay, it's the Gambling Gremlin's turn. I was a bit misguided about her kit, but it made more sense after we saw how the Fox Squad were meant to be an inseparable, synergistic Phase 1. Primarily, her 1 debuff removal fulfills the terminal cleansing to get you out of the claw's path. And her additional roll compression is being the best armed Amy support with critical damage and attack speed. Sha! Yep, it's Rena. I thought she would play a bigger role in the crab, but the existence of Armed Aris makes people lean towards the non-special solutions for this raid. Her main function is cleansing the terminal. The added value beyond that is buffing specials. So if you're running the specials Dress Mutsuki for the claws and School Akari for the hole, you'd want to use her. The problem here is that splitting buff types between strikers and specials isn't efficient. And since Aris is just that good and overall cheaper, most people just forgot about the special route. For just Drumbarka below Lunatic, you don't really need her. Rena's fellow International Paranormal Enthusiast Society member Konoko also got the backseat. Konoko wasn't bad per se, she tanks the bubbles in Phase 1 admirably and gets cost back in the process. She doesn't have as much additional utility as the other best, Kurumi, and not as many people pulled for her, so she was more of a Team 2 or Lunatic pick. If you're not challenging Lunatic, you can do without her. Next up is School Uniform Akane. She's pseudo EX damage like Kuroko, so you would use her for the whole if you were going to. Problem is, you would want to pair her with Rena, and as mentioned before, that just takes buffs away from the star of the Phase 1 show. Bald Lords of Lunatic used her in the Special Team 2 or later. Finally, it's time for the Foxes. First up is Fox 3, Kurumi. She is the best tank of Phase 1. She blocks the bubbles, but the tons of other stuff she does is what edges out Konoka. She generates passive cost, and she gives an attack buff every time she uses her EX skill. It's not strictly impossible without her, but few did Torment or above without her. Second is Fox 2, the best Fox. Nobody's paying me to, but yes, I have to say it every time. Mechanic-wise, her main function is cleansing the terminal to avoid the claw. And then the extra stuff she does is providing armed Aris and Otogi with EX damage buffs. If you're going to be running the Fox squad, or the honorary Piano Fox. Since you run 2 dealer strikers in Phase 1, her EX buff stacks up even faster as a bonus. She's definitely one of the premier options, among the few that there are. We're almost to the end now, but the Kira Kira Club is also participating in the Crab Boil. There was definitely some curiosity about what would want 3 debuffs cleansed at once, but she proved to be a very strong pick for Phase 2. She's the absolute best unit for cleansing the barrel for the maximum damage boosts and saving your team some health. Nobody can compare, even if there are ways to cope. And if for some reason you decide you want to heal instead of cleansing the barrel, there's that option too. Erika will make whichever clear you choose much easier if you decide to put down on her. And finally for the final set. While Aru is sidelined for her yellow armor, the 2 latecomers of the Dress PS68 squad made their debut for Drumbarka. Dress Mutsuki is not really used here. I hope she gets some other big use like a Gebera Grand Assault with blue, because staring down armed Aris in a showdown for being the blue crab cracker of Phase 1 is nothing short of cruel. Maybe this is her punishment for being such a brat. As far as I can tell, it was only the Lunatics and Mutsuki fanatics who used her. Not to say that's a bad reason, just be prepared to pay for playing the way you like. The last student is everyone's favorite weed, mine at least. I'm happy that she's got a definitive best in role. She terrorizes the crab claws in Phase 2 like no other, with her red EX damage that partially ignores defense. Like a real crab, Drummy's made of pretty tough stuff. Naturally, she's expensive as a DPS, but a lot of people used their borrow on her even if they were also missing Erika. That should be a testament to how strong she is. And now that you've been introduced to all the competitors for your Pyros, let's talk about some common comps that were used for each of the difficulties. Your team for Extreme. It's just armed Aris both Phase 1 and Phase 2. And whichever else tanks and buffers you can support her with. You don't need any gotcha students of your own to do this. There are none of the major penalties in Extreme. You can use pretty much any damage anywhere of any type. So just charge up the Death Roomba and lay waste to the crab. If you want to absolutely face roll it, use a team similar to Insane. Maybe your region is relaxed enough that even Extreme will be enough if you play in the promised land of Slack Plat. In Insane and up, it's time to start following the crab rules. This is somewhat expensive just by the fact that they're all but forcing us to run 2 teams. In terms of composition, the Insane and Torment Phase 1 teams look pretty similar. The most significant branching points are the Debuff Cleanser and the Hole Breaker. The vast majority of senseis use Nico for her straightforward synergy with Aris and Otogi or Dress Hina. The sensei that wanted to go fast with armed Amy would use Pajama Koyuki for her better buff synergy. And she also opened up a striker slot for Kei. As for the red Hole Breaker, the main choices were Otogi and armed Amy for Torment. And then for Insane, Dress Hina was also a prime option. The Hole is resistant to EX damage, but the math works out to Dress Hina being the optimal student for the job even so. She gets to relive some of her glory days. The most economical path for Torment in my opinion was Nico, Kurumi, and Otogi, considering senseis often choose limiteds over permanent students when forced to choose. For the least headache, I'd recommend UE 40 Otogi. There were timelines for UE 30 and even 4-star was mathematically possible, but you can get most of the way to UE 40 with playing Lore Pursuit diligently. That said, her ELIF per AP rate was also pretty bad, so build accordingly. If you happen to have armed Amy at UE 30 or higher, it makes breaking the hole early a good bit more comfy. Himari is used because Nico already gives CX damage, and Nagisa is just the best other special support for bolstering damage. The special team option for Phase 1 with Rena, Mutsuki, and Akane was basically unused below Lunatic. No surprise considering it's slower and extremely expensive. Insane had a much wider variety of comps used to substitute for students not recruited, but there are too many combinations to go over without spending a long time. If you're a newer or less privileged sensei, it might be difficult and you'll have to do some research on what your roster is close to if you're going to reach. but I offer this team that pulled none of the specifically Drumbarka coded units as some small encouragement to you, in spite of requiring a lot of old Fest students, and some random wacky comps I came across. For Phase 2 Torment, you had a decent amount of variety. The most premium setup would use both Erica and Dress Haruka, but people subbed all sorts of things when they couldn't put up the full expensive set. In the extreme, only Dress Haruka can achieve a one-team clear of Phase 2 even without Erica, but most people who did had both. Everyone else coped in 3-team or more land, choosing their borrow of Erica or Haruka for the most part. You'd see some combination of Swimsuit Izuna, Kuroko, Izuna, Arm Toki, Regular Toki, Aru, Dress Hina, Kei, Swimsuit Hoshino. That's enough, you get the point. You didn't have to obey the must-have red and blue suggestion either. Even pure blue teams could at least guarantee the crane would always be filled on time while doing unexpectedly high damage. Pure red, on the other hand, would not fare as well since it couldn't fill the crane to stop the counterclaw. My personal experience was that borrowing Erica for the main team was comfier because you can play it badly like Fury of Set. Just randomly throw buffs on and still come out with a reasonable amount of damage done. Unlike having to actually learn a timeline to manage crane filling and optimal red EX rotations, but maybe you'll like the red focused comps more. Another thing to note is that even without Erica, you can sustain through the barrel pulses even if it's not fully cleansed. Arm Toki won't always be able to keep up with the cleansing, but with mostly advantageous armor and maybe a normal skill healer, you should be able to keep the team relatively sustained. Insane has an even wider range of workable combinations. Naturally, the meta comps of Torment are perfectly good still, and there are plenty of examples that use minimal new units. But come on, someone even pulled it off with small OG Shin. That's like winning with Dan in Street Fighter. I believe in you. You'll pull it off. Some final thoughts to round this out. I thought Drumbarka was an interesting boss. A bit of time has passed since the actual raid, but I think the difficulty curve up to Torment at least was pretty good. Insane looked admittedly a bit expensive, though not completely out of line of recent bosses like the Assad, and Torment had a surprising amount of options, especially in the second phase, which helps with one of the recent requests by older players: I want to use more units. The only part that felt annoying to me was Otogi at UE40 being a bit unreliable for breaking the hole between the first and second claw lunge in Torment. When combined with the possibility of Aris not breaking the first claw, it created more RNG reliance than I'm happy to engage with. If they intended for the Cope Lords to not one-team Phase 1 without a struggle though, I guess that's according to plan. And the tuning for the permanent students feeling more like improvements than human rights felt about right. Anyways, that's all for this time. Good luck on the crab. If you please, share who you're planning on pulling and or using. Thanks for watching.